They said his name like a warning. Malik Stone. A man whose body was carved from war, whose presence turned loud rooms into whispers. Every woman in Atlanta knew him, or at least they knew what was said. The rumors weren't just stories. They were survival notes passed between friends. He was 6'6" of pure muscle, dark skin smooth as obsidian, veins running down arms thick enough to press fear into your spine. His chest strained every shirt, and when he walked, it wasn't with grace, it was with domination. People didn't move out of his way, they were already gone before he got there. No woman had lasted. That was the legend. Not one. Some tried. Most begged for more in the beginning. None made it through the night. Not fully. They walked out the next morning, dazed, shaky, legs wobbling, mascara running, and eyes hollow. "He's not human," one girl cried at a brunch table. "He was too much." Another whispered. "He didn't stop. Not even when I said I couldn't handle it." Malik never apologized. He wasn't a lover. He was a storm. He didn't believe in second rounds because no one ever made it through. The first, and tonight? He wasn't hunting. He didn't need to. He stood near the edge of the rooftop lounge, drink in hand, a long coat hanging off his frame, black shirt hugging every muscle. He wasn't trying to be seen, but still every woman looked. One stared too long and dropped her glass. Another walked past just close enough to inhale his scent, and forgot her own name. He didn't flinch. They never interested him. He could see it in their eyes. Curiosity, lust, fantasy, but fear always followed once things got real. Then she walked in. Sana Rivers. Her hips moved like poetry, her skin a flawless bronze brown that looked carved by moonlight. She wore a silky emerald green dress that clung to her like it had been melted onto her curves. But it wasn't her body that froze Malik's attention. It was her energy. Still, confident. Not seductive for attention, just naturally magnetic. Every man turned. She didn't even notice. She was too busy scanning the room. Until her eyes landed on him. She didn't look away. She looked deeper. Malik watched her walk through the crowd, calm, unbothered. He tilted his drink but said nothing. She stopped directly in front of him. No smile. No batting lashes. "You're Malik Stone, right?" His voice was deep, slow. "Who's asking?" "Nobody scared," she said, eyes fixed on his. "I heard you break women." He stared at her, trying to read the lie in her face. There wasn't one. "And you think you won't break?" "I know I won't." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "They all say that before they're crying into my sheets. Then maybe they were built soft," she said. "I'm not." Malik's jaw flexed. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have a response ready. Her tone wasn't arrogant. It was matter of fact, like she'd already seen monsters and didn't believe in bedtime stories. "You trying to prove something?" he asked. "No," she said. "I just don't believe the hype. I think you've been playing with weak women." "And you think you're strong?" "I don't think," she replied. "I know." Malik smiled, but not kindly, like a lion just met something that finally looked like prey worth chasing. "Then prove it." Sana tilted her head. "Tonight?" He nodded once. She stepped closer, close enough for him to feel the heat off her skin. "I don't run, Malik, whatever it is you think you are. I take men like you and wear them out." That hit him. No woman had ever dared speak to him like that. No fear, no performance, just raw, defiant power. He didn't answer. He just turned slightly, extended a hand, not to touch her, to invite her. She took it, and just like that, the lounge faded behind them. The rumors, the stories, the women who couldn't handle him, because tonight he finally met the one who just might. The elevator ride was silent, but the air between them pulsed. Sana stood beside Malik, close enough to feel the heat rising from his body. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floor. but her posture never wavered, chin high, eyes forward. Malik didn't touch her. Not yet. He didn't need to. The moment she stepped inside his private penthouse building, she had already stepped inside his world. Every other woman had hesitated somewhere along the way. In the car, at the door, in the elevator. Their confidence cracked before clothes ever came off, but Sana hadn't blinked. As the elevator dinged and the doors opened to the top floor, Malik watched her step into his space like she owned it. The apartment was sleek, dark marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights glittering outside like fallen stars. Everything about it screamed power, control. He locked the door behind them and turned slowly. "You're not going to ask questions?" he said. "Do I look like I came here to talk?" She replied, pulling the pins from her hair. The curls fell over her shoulders like a curtain of silk. Her dress slipped off one strap, revealing the curve of her collarbone. Malik took one step forward. He towered over her, but she didn't shrink. She looked up at him like she was still sizing him up, still deciding whether he was worth the hype. "You don't want slow," he said, voice low, eyes locked on hers. "Slow is for men who don't know what they're doing." Malik's fingers brushed her waist, gripping just enough to test. She didn't gasp. She didn't lean back. She leaned in. "You really think you can handle me?" Sana placed her hand on his chest, felt the heat, the power beneath. "No," she whispered, her lips close to his. "I know I can." That's when he snapped. His hands moved fast, grabbing her hips, lifting her clean off the floor like she weighed nothing. Her legs wrapped around him naturally, instinctively. His lips crashed into hers, hot and hungry, and for a second, just one, he felt her breath stutter, but she didn't pull back. She kissed him deeper, harder, like she'd been waiting for this storm and wasn't afraid to stand in it. He laid her down on the massive bed without letting go of her mouth. His weight pressed over hers, arms caging her in, and yet, still, she didn't flinch. "Tell me when it's too much," he growled against her neck. Sana smirked. "You first." Malik's pulse jumped. She pulled his shirt off with slow fingers, dragging nails across his abs just to watch him twitch. His body was carved in shadows, every muscle defined, thick, solid. Her hands explored him like she was studying a map she already knew how to conquer. He kissed down her neck, then lower. Every place he touched left her skin burning, and yet, she never begged. She never shook. She gripped his hair once and whispered, "You're going to remember me." Malik froze. No one had ever said that to him before. He had always been the memory, the regret, the warning. But her, she wasn't trying to survive him. She was trying to own him. Hours passed. They didn't keep track. There were no pauses, no breaks. Just skin and heat and a rhythm that built like thunder. The bed moved, the headboard cracked, the sheets were destroyed. But Sana, she never stopped, never tapped out. She gave back everything Malik poured into her, and more. At one point, sweat dripping down his temples, Malik stared down at her, breath ragged, muscles trembling. "How are you still?" He couldn't finish. She pulled him down, whispered in his ear, "You thought you were the only one who was too much?" And just like that, he realized, for the first time in his life, he wasn't dominating, he was being matched. The sun was still hours from rising, but the room glowed with a different kind of heat. Malik lay on his back, sheets tangled around his waist, chest rising like he'd just stepped out of a war. His arms were spread, muscles twitching, heart hammering like it hadn't stopped pounding since she first walked through his door. And across the room, standing at his window in nothing but the gold light of the skyline, was her, Sana. Hair wild, back arched, silhouette painted in the reflection of glass. She wasn't trying to look sexy. She just was. She sipped water from a crystal glass like nothing that just happened had fazed her. She looked like a goddess, But Malik had just met her fire, and for the first time in his life, he didn't win. He couldn't explain it. Every other woman had begged him to slow down, pleaded for a break. Some even left halfway through the night. But Sana, she had looked him in the eye while his body lost rhythm, like she was controlling his tempo. He sat up, watching her. Every muscle in his body ached like he'd gone 10 rounds in a ring. His jaw clenched, not in anger, but confusion. "Why aren't you lying here shaking like the rest?" he asked, voice rough. She didn't turn around. "Because I didn't come here to be conquered." Malik blinked. That was new. She finally turned, walking back toward him, each step confident. No shame, no shyness, just control. She climbed back into the bed, not to curl up next to him, but to face him directly. "You thought I'd be like them," she said. "Another woman scared of what you carry." "You're not scared?" he asked, genuinely. She tilted her head. "Of what?" "Your size, your stamina, your dominance." "Malik, you've been giving women your body like it's a punishment. I came to take you, not survive you." His breath caught. She wasn't playing with him. She wasn't trying to seduce. This was her truth, and it wrecked him. He stared at her lips, the mark on her shoulder where he'd bit too hard, the fingers that had scratched his back so deep they'd drawn blood. But here she was, strong, calm, eyes clear. "How did you even—" He trailed off. She leaned in, brushing her fingers across his cheek. "You're not the first storm I've walked into," she whispered. "But you're the first one who thought no one else could swim." Malik's throat dried. He had never been speechless. Never been seen like this. It was always physical, always raw, but Sana, she had stripped him without taking a single thing off. He tried to chuckle, play it off. "So what now, you win?" She smiled, not sweetly, like a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. "No," she said. "This isn't about winning." She ran her palm over his chest, feeling the tension rising again. "It's about lasting." That word echoed in his head. No one had ever wanted to last with him. They wanted to experience him, not keep him, and that's when it hit him. She wasn't just handling his power. She was owning it. For a man who had built his whole identity on being too much, Sana's calm control unraveled something he didn't know existed inside him. She didn't worship his strength. She matched it, balanced it, bent it in her favor, and suddenly, for the first time in his life, Malik Stone didn't want the night to end. Malik stared at his phone like it had turned into something dangerous. His thumb hovered above Sana's name for a full minute. He wasn't used to this part. Usually he didn't save numbers. He didn't need to. One night. That was the rule. His rule. But now he couldn't stop replaying the look in her eyes when she whispered, "This isn't about winning, it's about lasting." He hadn't heard her voice since that night. She hadn't texted, hadn't posted. She disappeared like smoke, but not from his mind. For 2 days, he couldn't sleep. He could still feel her legs around him, her breath on his neck, her fingers dragging down his back like she knew exactly where to break him. But it wasn't the sex that haunted him. It was the way she got up, dressed, and walked out without looking back. No woman had ever left him without needing something, without shaking, without asking for more. But she didn't flinch. She didn't even smirk. She took everything he gave and left him with silence. Malik Stone had broken women. But Sana? She walked away like he was the one left in pieces. He didn't like that feeling, which was exactly why he was about to do something he had never done before. He called her. 1 ring, 2, 3. He was about to hang up when her voice came through. "Didn't think you'd call," she said. "You left fast," he replied. "You always want them to stay?" "I don't usually want them at all." There was a pause on her end, but not a scared one. A knowing one. "So why me?" Malik didn't answer right away. He didn't want to admit it, but his silence said more than words could. "I want to see you again," he said finally. That, all you want? She asked, her voice soft but firm. He didn't know how to answer that, not yet. He wasn't ready to say he wanted to hold her, to talk, to find out why she made him feel like he was being exposed and protected at the same time. So he went with what he knew. I want more, he said, voice low. And this time, I want to see what happens when we don't stop. She exhaled slowly, and he could feel the heat rise in his chest. You sure? She asked. I've never been more. Then pick me up tomorrow night. Don't be late. Click no games, no hesitation. She was coming back. And Malik? He was already addicted. The next evening, he waited outside her apartment. She stepped out wearing all black tight jeans hugging her curves, her hair up, hoops catching the streetlight. You're quiet, she said as she slid into the passenger seat. I don't have much to say, or too much you don't know how to say yet. He looked over. How do you keep doing that? Doing what? Seeing right through me? Sana shrugged. It's easy to see through glass. That one hit deep. They rode in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was thick with energy, tension, something unspoken building like thunder. He took her to his private condo this time. Smaller, more personal. No city skyline. Just a warm interior, soft lighting, and walls that had never seen another woman. She stepped inside and turned to face him. No games tonight, she said. No games, he agreed. She walked up to him, pulled him down by his shirt, and kissed. Him, not hungry, not rushed, just real. And that's when he felt it. This wasn't about sex anymore. This was surrender. From both of them. And for the first time in Malik Stone's life, he didn't want to dominate. He wanted to stay. The door closed behind them with a soft click, but the silence that followed roared between their bodies. Malik stood still, staring at her. Sana kicked off her heels and let her jacket drop to the floor. She didn't undress, like a woman trying to impress. She peeled herself free of her clothes like she was shedding layers of defense. When she turned around in just her black lingerie, Malik didn't move. She stepped closer. His eyes swept over her, but something in him held back. You're quiet again, she said, running a finger along his collarbone. You good? He looked at her for a long moment. I don't know how to do this slow. Sana tilted her head. Who said we have to go slow? But this feels different. She nodded once. Because it is. That was all the permission he needed. He kissed her like he'd been starving. Not rushed, but ravenous. His hands roamed her waist, down her hips, lifting her with one powerful grip. She wrapped around him naturally again, but this time, they both paused. Their foreheads touched. Their breaths mingled. Sana whispered, Give me all of it. Malik closed his eyes and gave her everything. He laid her down with the care of a man handling something sacred, but his body was still trembling with need. He held her thighs wide, stared into her eyes, and finally let go of every restraint he ever carried. And she took him. No fear, no flinching. Her mouth parted as he entered. Her slow at first, then deeper, heavier. He watched her closely, expecting the same pattern. Eyes wide, hands clawing, voice cracking. But Sana didn't collapse. She matched him. Every thrust, she met. Every grip, she returned. When his hand slipped behind her neck and his lips found her shoulder, she held him tighter, pulled him closer. You feel that? He groaned against her skin. She looked into his eyes and whispered, I want more. It shattered him. No one had ever asked for more. He had always been the limit, the breaking point. But Sana wanted every piece. His rhythm deepened. The room filled with sound, flesh, breath, tension. The bed creaked under their rhythm and the walls seemed to lean in like they too were witnessing something sacred. He whispered her name like it was new. She held his face and said, Don't hold back. So he didn't. He gave her all of it. His weight, his depth, his heat, his raw, brutal power. And she didn't fade. She rose with him. Tears pressed behind his eyes, and he didn't understand why. He gritted his teeth, tried to blink it away, but her touch, her voice, her strength, it all pulled it forward. She kissed the corner of his eye just as a tear slipped out. "You're safe," she whispered. "Right here." He came undone. It wasn't just the climax. It was surrender. His body shook, his chest heaved, and when he collapsed beside her, it wasn't in exhaustion. It was in relief. Because for the first time ever, he had been completely inside someone. Without losing himself, and she had taken all of him, every inch, every ounce, every storm, and smiled after. The sun crept over the horizon, slipping gold across the window pane, tracing light over skin, sweat, and the scent of something unforgettable. Malik opened his eyes slowly, adjusting to the morning haze. But he didn't move. He was still wrapped in the warmth of last night. But more than that, he was wrapped in her. Sana lay beside him, chest rising slowly, her leg tangled over his, her hand flat against his chest like it belonged there. No words, no movement, just the steady rhythm of breathing, together. And for the first time in his life, Malik didn't want the morning to come. Because morning always meant goodbye. He'd seen it too many times. Women trying to fake confidence as they slipped on, clothes acting like they didn't care, even though their eyes told the truth. They couldn't take him. Not really. Not the weight. Not the force. Not the emptiness he left after. But Sana, she didn't just survive. She left something behind in him. Malik turned his head slightly, watching her sleep. There was no makeup to blur her beauty. No effort. No disguise. Just raw, natural power. And peace. And that peace? It scared him more than any fight he'd ever won. Because now, he didn't want to be alone again. He reached out and brushed a curl away from her. Forehead slow, hesitant. She shifted a little but didn't wake. He stared at the ceiling, heart thumping. What the hell are you doing, Stone? This wasn't him. He wasn't the man who cuddled. He wasn't the man who stared at women like they were sacred. He wasn't the man who remembered the way someone moaned his name with her eyes still open and fearless. But he wanted to be. For her. He exhaled and sat up slowly. He was careful not to wake her. Slid on sweatpants, walked to the kitchen, made coffee for the first time for someone else. And as he stood there, leaning against the counter, cup in hand, he heard her voice, groggy but clear. "You always disappear after?" He turned around. Sana sat up in bed, sheets pulled at her waist, skin glowing in the morning light. Her hair was wild, her eyes heavy but still sharp. He couldn't lie. Not to her. Usually. She tilted her head. And now? "I don't want to." She blinked once, slow. Then stood, pulled his white shirt from the floor and slipped it on like she'd worn it before. She walked toward him, barefoot, calm, steady. "You scared?" she asked. He didn't answer. She stopped in front of him, took the coffee from his hand, sipped and smiled. "You should be." He chuckled, shaking his head. "You're dangerous." She leaned in, kissed his cheek. "So are you," she whispered. "But I'm not running." He stared at her, really stared. This woman had walked into his world, survived every part of him and was still here, barefoot in his kitchen, drinking his coffee like she belonged. And for once, he wanted someone to belong, not for a night, not for a thrill, for real. He reached out, slid his hand behind her neck and kissed her, not like last night, not with hunger, with hope. And she kissed him back, soft and certain. No words were needed, because in that moment Malik Stone knew she wasn't going anywhere. Malik had never brought anyone to this part of the city. It wasn't dangerous, it was just forgotten. A quiet old neighborhood where his mother once braided his hair under a broken porch light, where his father's silence echoed louder than any scream. A place where he learned that strength wasn't about lifting weights. It was about lifting pain without letting anyone see you drop it. Sana sat in the passenger seat of his sleek black SUV, glancing at the houses they passed. He hadn't said much since they left his condo, but she didn't push. She knew when silence wasn't empty, but heavy. He finally parked in front of a worn-down brick house with chipped paint and rusted rails. He didn't move for a minute. She looked at him. "This where you grew up?" He nodded, jaw tight. "This is where I learned not to feel anything." Sana reached over, rested her hand on his thigh. Firm, grounding, patient. Malik took a breath and stepped out. She followed. Inside, dust hung in the air like memory. The furniture was old, covered with sheets, but in the corner of the living room on the wall, a single photo still hung. A young boy sitting in his mother's lap. Her smile was warm. His eyes were sad. "She died when I was 13, he said, standing in front of the frame. "Cancer, quick, quiet. My pops didn't know how to raise me, so he just didn't." Sana didn't interrupt. "I started fighting at 15, not in rings, in streets, then gyms, then beds." She raised an eyebrow. "Beds?" He turned to her, eyes dark. "Sex was the only place I could control everything. I made it rough so I didn't have to feel. I pushed women to their edge so I wouldn't get close. I used my body to punish my own damn heart." His voice cracked, and Sana didn't flinch. She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around his waist and laid her head on his chest. "You thought if you gave all of yourself, someone might leave you the way your mom did. That broke something in him." He held her tighter. "She didn't leave. She was taken. And you've been pushing people away before life could take them too." Malik swallowed hard. He hadn't cried in years, but now, standing in the hollow frame of his childhood in the arms of a woman who wasn't afraid of his ghosts, he let one tear fall. Just one. She reached up, wiped it gently. "You don't scare me, Malik. I'm not trying to. I know. That's why you're finally safe." He kissed her then, not for passion but for survival, and she kissed him back like she understood every broken piece before he even showed it. Later, they sat on the dusty old couch, his arm draped over her, her fingers laced with his. "You brought me here," she said softly. "Not just to show me your past. No. No. You brought me here because part of you hoped I'd stay and not run." Malik leaned his head back, stared at the ceiling like it might answer something, and then whispered, "Don't run." She turned to him, held his face with both hands. "I'm not going anywhere." It started with a headline: Malik Stone accused of violence in past hookups. The story spread like fire. Some anonymous source, probably an ex with jealousy, curdled in her veins, spoke to a tabloid. She twisted truth into poison, claimed he used women, hurt them, left them with more than bruises. She called him a predator, a man no woman should trust. And the worst part? The world believed it. Because it sounded like something Malik would have done. Before her. He sat on the edge of his condo sofa, phone in one hand, jaw locked. His lawyer was calling, his manager, PR people begging him to post a denial. But he wasn't thinking about the brand. He was thinking about Sana. Would she read it? Would she believe it? Would she think he was still that man? The door opened behind him. He didn't even look. Couldn't. She walked in holding a folded newspaper. Silence. Her heels tapped against the marble floor, soft but sharp. Then they stopped. "Have you seen it?" she asked. He nodded. "Is any of it true?" she said, voice calm. He looked up slowly. "Depends which version of me they're talking about." She stepped closer. "I'm asking you, Malik. Not the PR-approved version. Not the one with a six-pack and a reputation, the real you." He took a deep breath. "There was a time I didn't care who I hurt, I didn't ask questions, I didn't know how to stop, and yeah, I left bruises. Not from abuse, from being too much, too angry, too empty. But I never forced anyone. Never crossed that line. Sana held his gaze. Didn't blink. He stood. You want to walk? I wouldn't blame you. She stared at him for a moment longer, then walked forward and pressed the newspaper against his chest. I already read it, she said. Twice. He looked down at it, then back at her. And? She smiled, just slightly. And I still came. Malik's throat tightened. Because I don't care what the world thinks you were. I know who you're becoming. His hand gripped the paper. Her hand gripped his. I saw the man behind all that muscle. I felt the hurt under the power, and I never once believed you were a monster. He shook his head slowly, overwhelmed. Why do you believe in me? Because I saw you break, and I saw you choose not to run. She leaned in, her forehead touching his. You gave me your body, then your pain, then your truth. Now I'm giving you mine. He closed his eyes. Her scent calmed the fire in his chest. Then she whispered something only he would ever hear. You're not just too much.
Malik.
You're finally enough. That night, Malik didn't post a statement. He didn't call a lawyer. He just walked outside, with her hand in his. No hiding. No fear. Because now, he wasn't facing the world alone. The auditorium was packed. Malik stood backstage, heart thudding harder than it ever had in a fight, a bed, or a storm. Tonight wasn't about business or fame. It was about him and her. The event was a fundraiser for a community youth center Sana helped launch, an idea born from late-night talks and the childhood Malik tried so hard to bury. She asked him if he'd speak. He said no. But now, he needed to. The lights dimmed, applause rang out, and the host welcomed Malik Stone, entrepreneur, philanthropist, fighter, and man on a journey. He stepped into the light. Sana sat front row in a black satin dress, hair glowing under the soft spotlight, hands folded in her lap. She didn't smile big. She didn't need to. She looked at him like he already had her. But tonight, he wanted the world to know. He adjusted the mic, voice low and steady. I wasn't supposed to be here. The room fell still. I wasn't supposed to grow past 17. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. I was just muscle and trauma with a pulse. He paused, scanning the crowd. But only one face mattered. I built a life around being untouchable. Women came and went. I made them scream, cry, walk away, but I never stayed. Because I didn't think anyone could take all of me. He looked down, jaw clenched, then lifted his eyes again, straight to Sana. Until her. Silence. She didn't run, she didn't break. She didn't flinch when I gave her the kind of pain most people confuse for power. She took every part of me, the darkness, the danger, the fire, and stood taller. Sana's throat moved. She didn't blink. I've never said this to anyone before, not once. But I'm saying it now. Loud. Real. He stepped away from the podium, walked down the steps, straight to her, and in front of everyone he knelt. Not with a ring, not with a performance, but with his heart open and his soul exposed. He reached for her hand. I love you, Sana Rivers. And I don't want one more night where I have to wonder if you're leaving. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Cameras flashed. But all she saw was him. And all he saw was the woman who changed his story. She stood, pulled him up, whispered, I'm not going anywhere, then kissed him. Right there, in front of the world. And for the first time ever, Malik Stone wasn't too much. He was hers. 1 year later, Malik woke up to the smell of pancakes and soft R&B humming from the kitchen. He stretched, ran a hand across the empty side of the bed, and smiled. Not because she was gone, because she was there. He walked barefoot across the hardwood, floor of the house they built together, soft light pouring in through open windows, plants dancing in the breeze. This wasn't the penthouse, this wasn't power, this was peace. And in the kitchen, dancing slightly in one of his old t-shirts, was Sana, hair in a bun. No makeup, no performance, just her. She saw him, and without pausing, the whisk in her hand, said, Coffee's already brewing, you're welcome. He stepped behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, kissed her neck. I didn't say thank you. You never have to. He stood like that for a while, his chin resting on her shoulder, her body swaying gently into his. And he thought about everything. The man he used to be. The man she didn't run from. The man she built back up. Later, they sat on the porch, legs tangled under a shared blanket, mugs in hand. Sana glanced sideways. You remember the first thing you said to me? Malik smirked. You think you can handle me? And you remember what I said? I don't run. They both laughed. Funny thing is, he said, setting his mug down, I spent my whole life being too much, too intense, too rough, but you. She looked at him. You made me feel like I wasn't too much. I just hadn't found someone enough for me. Sana's eyes softened. You were always enough, Malik. You just needed someone strong enough to hold it all. He kissed her then, not because of passion, but because of peace. That night, in the quiet of their shared bed, Malik lay awake for a moment longer. He watched her sleep the same way he had that first night. Only this time, he didn't wonder if she'd leave, because now he knew she wouldn't. He turned, held her tighter, and whispered into her hair. You took all of me, and gave me back more than I ever knew I had. And for the first time in his life, he was whole.